Morena koutou. My name is Richie Hardcore. I am an anti-family and sexual violence campaigner. I work for the White Ribbon New Zealand organisation. I work for New Zealand's Ministry of Social Development, and I work for myself as an educator and activist. And before I continue, I really want to acknowledge the hard work that female feminist activists have been doing in this space for a long time. I'm very proud to walk alongside you, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the ground that you'd already laid. While finding my way into the space of anti-family violence work has happened largely organically, I do acknowledge that one of the key drivers why I do this is the fact that I grew up with family violence. Sadly, that's not unique. Here in New Zealand, we have the highest rate of reported family violence in the OECD. And indeed, the World Health Organization reports that 1 in 3 women will be a victim of physical or sexual violence from a partner or a non-partner within their lifetime. Clearly, we have a problem with the actions of boys and men, but that's not because they're born male. I believe that it's because we have a problem with concepts of masculinity. Our current ideas about what it means to be a man are a collection of traditional associations. They're not natural or inherent. They're taught and they're learned. So it stands that research shows us that one of the most effective preventative approaches to reducing our shocking rates of men's violence is to create a healthier conception of what it means to be a man. Studies show us that at present, these traditional associations are boys are meant to win. We're meant to be in control of our emotions at all times. We're meant to take risks. Violence is considered an acceptable way to solve problems and gain social respect. We're meant to be dominant and display our power over women. We're meant to be playboys, where we show a primacy of work. We work long hours to bring home the bacon. We're meant to have a disdain for homosexuals and pursue status. Indeed, we value anything stereotypically associated with being feminine. Being emotional, sensitive, gentle, or soft is often taught out of us. Harden up, suck it up. Boys are indoctrinated to being staunch and stoic. We teach these ideas from childhood, through the books that we read, through the toys that we give our children. Think of what you see in the boys section of any toy store: guns, swords, action figures, fast cars. We continue to enforce these social norms throughout adolescence and into adulthood. No crying, harden up, be a man. These messages surround us. This really came home to me when my 4-year-old stepson came home one day rather upset that his friend didn't want to play with him. Our boy is really into Care Bears. He's a big fan of Grumpy Bear and Wonder Heart. But his friend told him he didn't want to play with him that day because Care Bears are for girls. What adult has taught this other boy that Care Bears are for girls? If they believe that there are gendered toys, how is that boy going to behave when he's a teenager and really needs to ask for help? Through both the stories we tell as individuals and through mainstream media, we teach these ideas, both tacitly and explicitly, that masculinity means being physically strong, being tough, to get cooler cars, to use violence to solve problems, that men are legends if they seduce lots of women. As a society, we publicly praise sporting success above nearly everything else for men, above creativity, above art and poetry and literature, above academia, and we often deride men who aren't good at physical pursuits. Of course, we superimpose these ideas with the idea that alcohol consumption is part of our journey into manhood. Think about doing a yard glass at your 21st birthday. This combination of excess alcohol consumption and an expectation of violence and dominance combines to create a host of issues in our society. Raised on this diet, is it any wonder that men are acting out and harming themselves and those around them? Men make up the vast majority of the prison population for both crimes against people and property. Men are the vast majority of perpetrators and victims of all violent crime. Men killed by other men make up 62% of those murdered in New Zealand in 2017. And these figures are similar to Australia, Canada, the United States. Indeed, men are the victim and perpetrators of the bulk of all homicides globally, according to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. Boys and young men, following the belief that they must take risks at all times, and make up the bulk of our fatal road accidents, with most of what are considered high-risk drivers being young males. And perhaps most heartbreakingly, according to New Zealand's Ministry of Health, there are twice as many male youth suicides as female youth suicides in 2013. According to UNICEF, in 2017, New Zealand's male youth suicide rate between 15 and 19-year-olds was the highest in the OECD. When we're not hurting ourselves, we're hurting and perpetrating harassment and violence against women. We raise boys on a steady diet of objectification and sexism through our mainstream music, for example. Our top 50 Spotify and radio playlists routinely are made up of songs that promote violence and misogyny and the pursuit of status, as Lil Wayne clearly demonstrates in his latest album, Money Over Bitches and Above Hoes. That's still my favorite love quote. In a world where sexual violence is so prevalent, how can it be that a song like Robin Thicke's chart-topping Blurred Lines, where he minimizes the importance of sexual consent, becomes something that people sing along to? I've been in the hills, fucking superstars, feeling like a pop star, drinking Henny, bad bitches, jumping in the pool, ain't got on no bra, hit her from the back. Have you noticed how the words that we use around sex these days have become increasingly violent? Pulling on her tracks, and now she's screaming out, no mas. For those of you who don't speak Spanish, no mas means no more. And when you're having sex with someone and they say no more, it stops being sex and it becomes rape. And yet chart-topping songs like Post Malone's Rockstar are the background to our daily lives. We continue to dehumanize women and girls through the consumption of mainstream pornography. Research tells us that the average age of early exposure to pornography for young boys is 11 years old. They don't have the critical filters to understand what they're consuming. The massive pornification of our culture has spread into other media tropes, like Dolce & Gabbana's advertising. Porn routinely showcases degrading actions and language and makes them sexy. We link sex and violence from a very young age. The subsequent pornification of our wider culture and mainstream messaging has made dominance of men over women almost acceptable and expected. When we raise our boys on a steady diet of sexism and misogyny, is it any wonder that they're sexist and misogynistic? This is a photograph, an actual screenshot from a private Facebook group that a group of Wellington College boys had. They're not born this way, we've made them this way. When a 16-year-old boy can simply write, fuck woman, what does it say about our culture? So how do we fix all of this? I believe it's vital that we have a mandatory, more standardized curriculum ensuring that all schools teach what's called a gender transformative approach to masculinity. This must, of course, be age-appropriate and culturally relevant. It should dismantle old notions of masculinity and teach new and fluid ones across our schooling system. We need this not just here in New Zealand, but worldwide. Giving a socio-ecological perspective creates changes in attitudes and values. We must teach our boys the art of communication, give them critical filters, and showcase and role model new ideals. The current ideas we have around masculinity have been constructed and taught, so we can deconstruct them and teach new ways of thinking, being, and doing. We want to give young people the tools to inoculate them against the constant narrative of sexism and misogyny that we expose them to. The goal is gender norm transformation, a new norm about what it means to be a man. We want men to move from the old damaging ideas of masculinity to new and positive ones. Admittedly, it's a slow and uphill battle to change the media landscape we live in and to establish a standardized approach to gender transformative masculinity education. We can, however, all change ourselves, starting right now. I'm not a perfect man. I've grown up in the culture that I've explained, and I've had to spend the last 20 years unpacking what I've learned and acting on the new information that I've come to understand. I really want to speak to the men in the room, and I encourage you to reflect on and take account of how you may have been in the past, and when appropriate, perhaps extend an apology to those who may need it. We as men can role model vulnerability to those around us. We can encourage younger men to talk about what's going on inside of them. We can ask for help ourselves. We can challenge our friends when they make sexist jokes. Simply asking, why is that funny, is a great way to become a circuit breaker and encourage others to think more critically. The ideas of masculinity are taught and imposed on us, but that means we can change them. We can teach new ways of being and understanding what it means to be a man, and look to not recreate the media we're exposed to, whether that's children's books or Hollywood movies. Emotions aren't gendered. No feelings are specifically feminine. They're what make us human. Thank you.